and welcome to News for the Boffs. Tonight's top stories: Wuthering Heights and critics. Which view should we take? We have so many people offering so many views. But which one do you decide? We have Lucy Hornswoggle over in the studio. Over to you. Thank you, Rebecca. Well, I'm interested in the psychoanalytical approach and think that everyone should be on board with me. Why is this? Well, Sidney DeBell offers a fantastic theory for its portrayal of the deep conscious in Catherine's character. According to DeBell, Bronte understood that certain crimes and sorrows are not so much the result of intrinsic evil as a false position in the scheme of things. I actually love the Freudian approach to this novel too. A reading that I like in particular is Linda Gould's interpretation. She sees so much here: the symbiosis of Catherine, Heathcliff and Edgar, and the relationship of Freud's id, ego and superego. At a psychological level, they merge into one personality, with Heathcliff's image of the three of them buried, the unconscious, in what is essentially one coffin. Heathcliff, the id, expresses the most primitive desires, like sex, seeks pleasure and avoids pain. The id is not affected by time and remains in the unconscious. Approximately, Heathcliff's origins are unknown. He is dark, he runs wild, he is primitive, and as a child, his 3-year absence remains a mystery. Catherine, the ego, relates to other people in society, tests the impulses of the id against reality, and controls the energetic id until there is a reasonable chance of its urges being fulfilled. Edgar, the superego, represents the rules of proper behaviour and morality, inculcated by teachers, family and society. He is a civilised and cultured man. As conscience, he compels Catherine to choose between Heathcliff and himself. In Freud's analysis, the ego must be male to deal successfully with the world. To survive, a female ego must have to live through males. This Catherine does by identifying egotistically with Heathcliff and Edgar, according to Gould. Catherine rejects Heathcliff because a realistic assessment of her future with him makes clear the material and social advantages of marrying Edgar and the degradation of yielding to her unconscious self. Her stay at Thrushcross Grange happened at a crucial stage in her development. She is moving through puberty toward womanhood. She expects Edgar to accept Heathcliff in their household and to raise him from his degraded state. This would result in the integration of disparate parts of her personality, id, ego, and superego, into one unified personality. Confronted by the hopelessness of psychological integration or wholeness and agonised by her fragmentation, she dies. Gould carries her Freudian scrutiny to the second generation. The whole history of both generations of Earnshaws, Lintons and Heathcliffs may be read as the development of one personality, beginning with Catherine Earnshaw and ending with Catherine Linton, Heathcliff Earnshaw. The second Cathy has assimilated and consulated the id, Heathcliff, and the superego, Edgar, through marriages with Hareton and Linton. I see. The Freudian approach does have some... Sorry, I'm getting an interruption from our Marxist correspondence. I do not think it's about the Freudian approach at all. In order to understand the novel, we need to look at the novel for its correspondence between political, social and economic conditions. Terry Eagleton looks upon this, as he considers the novel in terms of its reference to class, history, and the relationship between its culture's ideology. Eagleton states that Wuthering Heights presents a world view, and that it is unfragmented by the conflicts it represents. He states that a novel is an experience of unsatisfying tension, and that it is based on contradictions and the oppositions. He closely examines the love triangle between Catherine Heathcliff and Edgar Linton, stating that her choice of Edgar Linton in the end identifies an act of bad faith. claims that Heathcliff represents authentic love and that Catherine's love for Heathcliff is an authentic selfhood. In addition to this, Eagleton identifies the issue of liberty and oppression. He classifies Wuthering Heights as the world of the gentleman farmer and Thrushcross Grange as the eponymous of the gentry. He states that Heathcliff both embodies and antagonises the values of which he wishes to contest. He can be seen as a parody of capitalistic activity and also a participant in the system due to his complex relationships with marriage and property. He magnificently concludes that the history of Catherine and Heathcliff is the history of social and ideological opposition between the real and the ideal. Yes, I suppose you have a very valid point too. But don't make your mind up yet. We still have one more approach to view. Katie Barron, over to you. Rebecca, you guys have some really good views and they're really valid and all that, but my view is more focused on a feminist point of view and therefore it doesn't really focus on the same aspects that you were looking at. Feminist approach to the novel as a response of origins, a rewriting of Miltonic myth of the fall, and also an exploration into heaven and hell. They identify the opposition between nature and culture as culture, male, and nature as female, stating that the novel is gender-obsessed. Nature, being female, drew up 2 points. Number 1, the link between Catherine and female witch child in Lockwood's dream. And number 2, Catherine chooses culture over nature, after reinforcing that to marry Edgar Linton, she must be in heaven. This approach here also focuses on the fact that Heathcliff as a figurative manifest action of Catherine's desire for a whip. Thrushcross Grange, in essence, equals culture, as Catherine lives as a lady due to masculine influence about heaven. However, the feminine attributions of Heathcliff goes against conventions due to his emotions/passion, but also because he is powerless. Gilbert and Gubar argue that Heathcliff becomes ill due to his exposure of culture. The conclusion that comes from this, then, is that in writing Wuthering Heights, Emily Bronte struggled to subvert some of the founding myths of literature and religion, gender and marriage, and patriarchy and power. Back to you, Rebecca. Thank you, Katie. So there you have it. The psychoanalytical, the Marxist, and the feminist. Which one do you decide? Join us tomorrow for News for the Buffs.